Today we are tackling one of the most talked about, controversial and undeniably successful figures of our time, Elon Musk. Hi and welcome back to How You Win, the channel where we break down what actually makes people successful and cut through the noise of advice that sounds good but doesn't work. Now, if you're thinking, well, he's a once-in-a-generation genius, what can I possibly learn from him? Well, let me stop you right there. What if I told you that Musk's incredible success isn't just random genius? What if it's the result of a predictable, a learnable system of thinking? A system that allows him to solve problems everyone else deems impossible. Now, in fact, he follows the same core principles I break down in my book, Master Your Lifescript. So today, we're going to use 3 of those principles as a special lens. We're going to dissect how Musk actually operates, and I'll show you how you can start applying the same mental models to your own life. Alright, so let's get into it. Now, the first principle that Musk has absolutely mastered is what I call distinguishing between 2 types of laws. In my book, we talk about the difference between unchangeable natural laws, like the laws of physics, and changeable man-made rules, which are just conventions, they are traditions, they are things that have always been done that way, right? Most people get stuck because they treat man-made rules as if they're as rigid as the laws of physics. They accept the status quo without question. Successful people like Musk do the exact opposite. They question every man-made rule and base their actions only on what is proven to be true by nature, or sometimes they call it God. Musk famously calls this reasoning from first principles. In a now famous interview with Kevin Rose, he explained it perfectly. He said, "You boil things down to the most fundamental truth and say, what are we sure is really true? And then you reason up from there."
You kind of boil things down to the most fundamental truths and say, okay, what are we sure is true, or as sure as possible is true? And then reason up from there. That takes a lot more mental energy.
Let's look at SpaceX. The man-made rule was that rockets were astronomically expensive because they could only be used once. Now, building a private space company was seen as insane. But Musk ignored that. He went back to the first principles of physics and he asked, what is a rocket actually made of? And the answer was, well, it's aerospace-grade aluminum alloys, it's a little titanium, it's copper, and it's carbon fiber. So as documented in Ashley Vance's biography, he calculated the cost of those raw materials and found they were only about 2% of the total price of a rocket. The other 98% was not a law of nature, it was a man-made cost built up over decades of inefficient processes. Now, by seeing that distinction, he realized that if he could reuse the rocket, he could break the man-made rule of cost and fundamentally change the game. He saw the real physics of the problem, not the social convention. That is the first key. Stop accepting the rules everyone else follows and ask yourself, is this a law of nature or just the way things are currently done? Section 2. Okay, but what happens when you decide to break the rules and things go horribly wrong? Well, this brings us to the second principle Musk uses, maintaining realistic expected values. Now, this sounds complex, but it's actually really simple. In Master Your Lifescript, I explain that our brains are constantly making 2 estimations. First, the action outcome expectation, or AOE. That's the belief that a specific action will actually lead to the result that you want. And the second is the self-efficacy expectation, or SEE. That's the belief that you or your team you actually have the skills to do that action. Success happens when you align both these expectations with reality. Now think about SpaceX in the early days. Between 2006 and 2008, their first 3 rockets failed spectacularly. They would launch and then bam, explode, taking all of their time, money, and hopes with them. After the 3rd failure, as reported by CBS News and others, the team was completely devastated. They had enough money for only 1 more launch, and this is where most people would quit and save the rest of their money. Yeah, their AOE, the action outcome expectancy, the belief that launching a rocket will lead to orbit, would plummet. They'd say the behavior doesn't work. Let's give it up. But Musk did something different. He didn't see the failures as proof that success was impossible. He saw them as feedback that his understanding was incomplete. He knew that the laws of physics allowed for a rocket to reach orbit, so the AOE was theoretically possible, but his team's ability to execute was not there yet, so the SEE needed to be improved. Instead of giving up, he treated failure as a natural signal of refinement. He adjusted his expectations, learned from the data, and on September 28, 2008, the fourth launch of the Falcon 1 was a perfect success. Now, that ability to see failure not as a final judgment, but as data to refine your expectations is what separates those who achieve the impossible from those who give up too early. So, he questions the rules and he learns from failure. But what drives all of this? This is where our third and final principle comes in. It's the goal pyramid. As I explain in the book, our goals exist on 3 levels. At the very bottom, you have behavioral goals, the specific things you do every day. Work on the engine design, for example. And in the middle, you have outcome goals. That's the measurable result you want to achieve. So, for example, successfully land a reusable rocket. But at the very top, and this is the most important, is your role, your identity goal. This is who you want to be. It's the mission that drives everything. For Musk, his stated identity goal is clear: to ensure the long-term survival of humanity by making life multiplanetary. This isn't just a vague dream, it's the top of the pyramid, and it gives every action below it a profound sense of purpose. Think about the infamous production hell at Tesla for the Model 3. As he described in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, he was literally sleeping on the factory floor, working tirelessly and pushing his team to the brink.
Where do you sleep tonight?
Tonight's in the factory.
In the factory, not in a hotel.
Well, technically in a conference room in the factory, but yeah.
You sleep in a conference room in the not finished factory tonight.
Yeah, it gives me a good feel for what's going on.
Why would anyone do that? Because he wasn't just working on a behavioral goal of building cars, he was serving his identity goal. In his mind, accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy is a critical step in preserving humanity. When your actions at the bottom of the pyramid are directly connected to a powerful identity at the top, it gives you a nearly limitless resource of motivation. It allows you to endure the pain, the failures, and the stress because you're not just doing a job, you are fulfilling a mission. So let's recap. We've seen that Elon Musk's success can be dissected through the principles from Master Your Lifescript. First, he distinguishes between laws, reasoning from first principles to break man-made rules. Second, he maintains realistic expected values, treating failures as feedback to learn and to adapt, not as reason to quit. And third, he structures his life around a goal pyramid, connecting his daily actions to a powerful motivating identity. Now, this isn't magic, it's a mindset, it's a system, and it is learnable. This was just a glimpse into 3 of the core principles that drive success. If you want to get the entire system with all the exercises and frameworks you need to start analyzing your own life and rewriting your script, then put your name on the waitlist to get your copy of Master Your Lifescript when it comes out. Link is in the description. What do you think? Which one of these principles resonated with you the most? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our next breakdown. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on How You Win.